There are so many amazing books coming out this year. Hello everyone, today I'm here to talk about my most anticipated 2020 releases. Yes, I am releasing this in 2020. I'm very behind on my videos, as you can tell. I hope that's okay. Either way, we're just in the beginning of 2020, so I think it's fine. Today I'm sharing with you my most anticipated releases from this year that are coming out this year. I always do these lists, and of course I always miss out on some. I forget some. Some information of them have not been released yet, but either way, I have a list for every single month. I will say the first 6 months are very, very strong, and as always with all of these lists I do, they taper out in the middle of the year because books have not been released, like the information has been released, things like that. So when it comes to like June and July, that's when it gets really downhill, and you know, that's why I do seasonal ones as well. So I'll do a spring releases, a summer releases, and fall releases, so be on the lookout for those. So this one is just a year overall, what books I'm most anticipating. Now of course there are books I'm interested in that I did not list on this list because we would be here forever. These are the ones I'm most interested in, hence why I'm talking about them. So without further ado, let's get into my most anticipated 2020 releases. First up, coming out on January 7th is You Were There Too by Colleen Oakley. This is an adult literary fiction, maybe romance book. In this book, we follow a character named Mia, and Mia has a great husband, she has a great life, but she dreams of this other man, and she doesn't control her dreams at all. She just dreams of this man that she's never met before, and she's had it for years, and she doesn't know what it means at all. And then one day, she actually meets the man that she's been dreaming of, and it turns out that he has been dreaming of her too. So this whole book is basically, she must choose between the man she loves and the man fate has chosen for her. I read her other book, Close Enough to Touch, and I really loved it. It was a quiet type of book, and I think this one will be too, but I think this one's gonna be really sad, which is why I haven't read it yet, because I have to be in the right frame of mind to read sad books, and I'm not there right now. So I will read this soon. I'm just trying to prepare myself because I feel like it's gonna end sadly, but I think it's gonna be a beautiful read. Next up, also on January 7th, is The Map from Here to There by Emery Lord. This is the sequel to The Start of You and Me, which I read a few years ago. We follow Paige, who basically in that book, after the year her boyfriend dies, of how she kind of moves on, meets somebody else, goes on with her life. So in this sequel, we follow Paige in her senior year when a whole bunch of life decisions come about. So I don't want to tell you more about this book in case you haven't read the first book, The Start of Me and You, but I really enjoyed it. I love Emery Lord's book, so I definitely plan to read this one. I might need a refresher on The Start of Me and You because I forgot a lot of it, but you guys know I love YA contemporary books. On January 7th, we have Chosen by Kirsten White. This is the sequel to Slayer, which I read last year. This is a book that's set in Buffyverse, aka Buffy the Vampire Slayer. While I didn't love Slayer as much as I wanted to, I do plan to continue on with the series because I just love Buffy so much. I just have to, honestly. So in this book, we follow a character named Nina, who is a watcher, and basically she learns that she's the last Slayer ever and things like that. I'm really hoping some Buffy characters are in this book because they were in Slayer, but I want them to be in this book. I'm hoping one of my favorites will show up just for a brief cameo. That's all I want. But yeah, I'm gonna read this book, but I don't know how much I'll love it. But needless to say, I'm gonna read it. On January 14th, we have Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. As you can tell, I'm currently reading this right now. So this is the second book in her Fix Her Up series, which I read last year, and I really enjoyed. It's definitely a steamier book, so in case you're not into that, be forewarned. In this book, we follow a character named Rosie and Dominic, who have been married, and ever since he's come home from the war, their marriage has been very strained, and Rosie is on the verge of leaving, and they decide to do kind of a last-ditch counseling thing to try to really salvage their marriage, and that is basically what this book is about. I'm expecting a lot of really like steamy, romantic marriage things. I'm on page 120. I'm really enjoying it so far, but I have heard not a lot of people love this. They love Fix Her Up, but not this one, but we shall see. 14th, we have Lucky Caller by Emma Mills. This is another YA contemporary book. I've read all of Emma Mills' books before, and I love them. All I know about this one, it's about a girl named Nina who takes a radio broadcasting class, and she thinks it was going to be easy, but it's not going to be easy, and her classmates are a disaster, and the worst includes Jamie, a childhood friend that she was hoping to avoid forever. With YA contemporaries, I don't tell you that much because I don't need to know too much. I can pretty much tell it's going to be a book about romance and friendship and love, and that is all I need to know. Emma Mills just writes really adorable books. And that's all I can say about that. On January 22nd, we have Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. And this one, sorry, I have to read from papers, guys. I hope that's okay. This one is about Pepper and Jack. Pepper, like Pepper Jack. Pepper Jack cheese. Is that weird? I don't know. Pepper runs her family's booming fast food business, Big Lead's like Twitter account. And then Jack learns that Big Lead Burger stole his grandmother's grilled cheese recipe from his family's delis. That is, and basically like Pepper and Jack, they both run their family's like Twitter accounts and they're bashing each other online pretty much on Twitter. And then their spat turns into a viral Twitter war, like I said. Little do they know, while they're publicly duking it out, they're also falling for each other in real life on an anonymous chat app that Jack built. So it's your quintessential like, we're falling for each other, we also hate each other online type of thing, like You've Got Mail sort of situation. I think it sounds good. A lot of people already read it and loved it. It sounds like an adorable YA contemporary romance, which is 1000% my jam. Moving on to February. On February 4th, we have Yes, No, Maybe by Becky Albertalli and Aisha Saeed. This follows two people, Jesse, who is volunteering for his local state senate as long as he's behind the scenes, so he doesn't want anything to do with being the forefront. And we also, he would never dream of like knocking on people's doors to get them to vote, but he has to do that. And then he meets Maya. Maya's having the worst Ramadan ever. Her mom decides to like send her with a guy to start canvassing for the neighborhood for politics. So obviously Maya and Jesse are paired up to go canvassing, and of course I'm guessing a friendship / relationships comes about. I love Becky Albertalli's book, so I'm excited to read this one. I've never read a book by Aisha Saeed before, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm excited for it. February 11th, we have Love Unscripted by Owen Nichols. I believe this is an adult romance book, if I'm not mistaken, or a contemporary book. Projectionist Nick, love should mirror how it does on the big screen. And when he falls for Ellie on the eve of 2008 presidential election, it finally does. For 4 blissful years, they are in an amazing relationship. And he basically loves his job of being a film projectionist, and then life seemed picture perfect. And then, now it's 2012, Ellie has moved out, and Nick's trying to figure out where it all went wrong. With Ellie gone and his life far from the happy ending he imagined, Nick wonders if the romance could ever be as perfect as it once was. So I'm guessing this is going to be a book about kind of dissecting a relationship, of figuring out where it went wrong, why it went wrong, can we remedy this? It kind of gives me that 500 Days of Summer vibes. Have you seen that movie? Which I love. So I am interested in this one. I haven't heard anybody talk about it, but it sounds really interesting to me. We have a whole bunch of books coming out February 18th. First up, we have Of Curses and Kisses by Sinan Menon. And this one, all I know, it's a contemporary spin on Beauty and the Beast set in a boarding school, and that's all I need to know about it. It's got the roses on it. I mean, I love her books. I'll read anything she writes because they're just fun YA contemporary books. I don't know if this is going to be more fantasy-esque, we shall see, but I'm very interested in it. Also on the 18th, we have The Other Misses by Mary Kabiko. This is an adult mystery thriller book. So we follow Sadie and Will, who have only just moved from Chicago to a small town Maine island, where their neighbor is found dead in her home, which is not awkward at all. The murder rocks the tiny coastal island, but no one is more shaken than Sadie, who is terrified the thought of her killer in her very own backyard. But it's not just Morgan's death who has Sadie on edge. Basically, we have this character named Sadie who is very shaken up by this, and she's drawn deeper into this death, and I think she tries to figure out what exactly happened. So I've read 3 Mary Kabika books, and I really enjoy them, so I'm planning to read this one. I want to read more mystery thriller books this year. I want to make that a goal. 18th, also, we have The Upside of Falling by Alex Light. I think this is a YA contemporary book. It's got a 17-year-old named Becca who's had years and she's never really believed in true love, but when her former best friend teases her for not having a boyfriend, she pretends that she's been seeing this guy named Brett. And Brett is a guy that has it all. He is one of the most popular guys in school, and he should have no problem finding someone to date, but he's always been more focused on his future than who to bring to prom. When he overhears Becca lie, he decides, hey, let me just get on in on this, and so that's what happens. So basically, it's a fake relationship trope, which is one of my favorite tropes of all time. So, of course, I'm hoping to love this one. Moving into March, we have House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas coming out on March 3rd. This is her first foray into adult fantasy. And yes, everyone's got very differing opinions on Sarah J. Maas books. I personally really enjoy them. I'm just going to say that right now. So I'm definitely planning to read this one. We don't know much about it. It says the story of half-fae and half-human Bryce as she seeks revenge in a contemporary fantasy world of magic, danger, and searing romance. And that's all I need to know about it. I'm gonna read it. I'm hoping to probably love it because I'm a sucker for Sarah J. Maas books. That's how it goes. Also on March 3rd, we have In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. And this one, we follow a character named Danny who is asked a question of like, where do you see yourself in 5 years at an interview? You know, I'm sure a lot of us get that question. We're always like, And so she has a meticulously crafted answer at her disposal when she's at the interview. Later, after nailing the interview and accepting her boyfriend's marriage proposal, Danny goes to sleep knowing that she is right on track to her 5-year plan. When she wakes up, she's suddenly in a very different apartment with a very different ring on her finger beside a very different man. Television now is, it's basically 5 years in the future. It's 2025. Like I said, 5 years in the future. And after a very intense, shocking hour, Danny wakes again at the brink of midnight back in 2020. She can't shake what's happened, but it feels more like a dream. Determined to ignore the odd experience, she files it away in the back of her mind. That is until 4.5 years later when by chance Danny meets the same man from her long ago vision. This sounds amazing to me. I have read a few books where it's like amnesia and you wake up and you're different and things like that, but I think this sounds awesome. So it's basically she has this plan for 5 years. She accepts her boyfriend's proposal, then she falls asleep, wakes up 5 years, and her life's very, very different. And then when she falls asleep again, she's back in the past and she's like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then she meets the guy that she was with 4 years later. Like, it just sounds interesting to me. I've read her other book, The Dinner List, which I also really enjoyed. So this one sounds very interesting, as I keep on saying. Also on March 3rd, we have The Two Lives of Lydia Bird by Josie Silver. It's about Lydia and Freddie. They've been together for more than a decade, and Lydia thought their love was indestructible, but she was wrong. On her 28th birthday, Freddie dies in a car accident. So now it's just Lydia, and she wants to hide indoors and never do anything, obviously. Lydia knows that Freddie would want her to live a full and true and happy life. So basically she enlists, she starts trying to go out into the world, and then something happens that gives her another chance at her old life with Freddie. A life where none of the tragic events of the past few months happen. Lydia's pulled again and again across the doorway into the past, living 2 lives impossibly at once. But there's an emotional toll returning to a world where Freddie, alive, still owns her heart because there's someone in her new life, her real life, who wants her to stay. Oh, this book sounds like it's gonna... I love Josie Silver's One Day in December. It's one of my favorite books. And I think this one's going to be also amazing, but it sounds like it's going to be a heart-wrenching book. One of my worst fears ever is to lose my husband. So I know I'm going to read this and I know I'm going to love it, but it sounds like it's going to rip my heart into shreds. Also on March 3rd, we have Hearts, Heroes, and Heath Hall by Casey West. So when I was looking this up, I also saw it titled Moment of Truth. So I don't know what this book is actually called. I don't know. It's either called Hearts, Heroes, and Heath Hall, or The Moment of Truth. Your guess is as good as mine for right now. But basically we follow Hadley, who's a swimmer, and then I think she meets this guy, and I don't know. With Casey West books, I don't need to know much about it. She writes YA contemporary books that I love. They're just fun, addictive, sugar-coaty books that I just can't get enough of. So I don't know much about this book because I don't know which one is the correct one, but there you are. Also on March 3rd, we have Wild at Heart by Kay Tucker. This is a sequel to The Simple Wild, which got released a couple years ago, that I loved. It's a kind of new adult romance book that's set in Alaska, that's hate to love, that I adored. So I'm excited to see this character, I'm excited to see this relationship progress more, and I hope it's going to be amazing. I have really high expectations for it, if I'm honest with you, but that's how it goes sometimes. March 10th, we have Undercover Bromance by Alyssa K. Adams. So I read her first book, oh crap, what was her first book called? The Bromance Book Club, I believe. I forget. And I enjoyed it. It was a fun, like, funny book. So I am anticipating this one. We follow a character named Liv who has a dream job as a sous chef. And then we have Mac, and who's never met a woman he couldn't woo. And then basically he has to enlist. Like, this whole idea is we have this bromance book club where these guys meet and they read, like, romance books to try in order to understand women better, which, you know, I don't know. But either way... It's funny. I don't take them too seriously, so I am anticipating this one. And lastly, in March, we have The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. This is basically about this character named Casey who works for the Trips, who are famous. They're kind of like Joanna and Chip Gaines, I believe. I don't know much about them. And like they're famous for, you know, their show and things like that. And the Trips do not like each other at all. They're in a loveless marriage, but they have to go on this book tour to promote their book. And Casey, their assistant, does not want to go because they are horrible to be with, but she has to. And basically, she's also paired with James, who is also going on the book tour because he has to. And they both hate their job because the Trips are horrible people. And of course, a romance ensues. If you don't know, Christina Lauren writes adult romance books that I eat up and can't get enough of. Moving into April, we have Ruthless Gods by Emily A. Duncan. This is a sequel to Wicked Saints, which I read last year, and I actually really enjoyed it. It's a YA fantasy book that's basically about these two warring countries. They both have very different beliefs when it comes to magic. One believes in gods, and the gods directly talk to them, and then we have another opposing kingdom that believes in blood magic, where they actually like have a spell book and they put the spell pages into their own blood to enhance the spell and things like that. And so basically we have this warring thing happen and two characters fall in love that shouldn't, etc, etc, etc. I liked it. It's definitely a darker YA fantasy, but I enjoyed it. And this is, she's thick. I don't know how many pages she is. Oh, she's only like 534. Either way, I'm anticipating it. It's going to take me forever to read. On April 14th, we have the Happily Ever playlist by Abby Jemezin. This one is basically about 2 years after losing her fiance. Sloane feels like she can't get her life back on track. But one troublemaking pup with a take me home look in his eyes is about to change everything. That's right, guys. We got puppies in this book. With her new pet by her side, Sloane finally starts to feel more like herself. Then after weeks of unanswered texts, Tucker's owner reaches out. He's a musician on tour in Australia, and bottom line, he wants Tucker back. So basically, she finds a dog, then she learns that dog owns somebody. You can guess what happens. Either way, it's got a puppy in it, so it sounds like a winner to me. And lastly, in April, we have The Time of Our Lives by Emily Wibberley and Osman Siga Broca coming out on April 21st. So this book follows Fitz, who is in fear of the day a single mother's onset early Alzheimer's starts stealing her memory. He vowed to stay close to home and to care for her, never mind a ridiculous college tour she's forcing him on that's to schools that she'll never go. He meets Juniper, counting down the days until she can leave home, a home crowded with 5 younger siblings and 0 privacy. Against the wishes of her tight-knit family, Juniper plans her own college tour of the East Coast with one goal: get out. When Fitz and Juniper cross paths for their first college tour in Boston, they're at odds the moment they meet until something else happens. So this sounds like it's going to be amazing. If you don't know, they've written 2 other books before, which I've enjoyed. They're just YA contemporary books that are just adorable and sweet. We all know that's my jam. Moving into May, we have Chasing Lucky by Jen Bennett, which comes out on May 5th. In this book, we follow a budding photographer named Josie who has spent most of her life with her single mother and floating from city to city, unable to call any place home. When they return to her mother's historical New England hometown to run the family bookstore, this sounds amazing already. Josie knows it's not forever. After a disastrous summer party, a poorly executed act of revenge lands her in big time trouble. As in jail. Alongside the last person she's ever wanted to share a mugshot with, Lucky. Lucky is the son of the boat mechanic across the street. He's a lone wolf outside her trouble. Josie and Lucky become the talk of the town. There you go. I don't want to tell you too much about it. It's about a girl that moves from Chinatown, then she finally gets settled in New England. She meets a bad boy, of course, that's probably going to have more than meets the eye. I'm a sucker for it. I love Janet books, so I'm hoping to love this one. On May 19th, we have The Ballad of Songbird and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. That's right, folks, we're revisiting The Hunger Games. World of Pan Am, 64 years before the events of The Hunger Games, starting on the morning of the reaping of the 10th Hunger Games. So I thought this was going to be a future book, and I was like, ugh, I'm not interested in that. I just don't like that. Like with Harry Potter, I'm just like, just leave it alone. It's done. Let's finish it. But since this is kind of a, prequel, I'm interested in it, and I'm hoping it'll be good. I don't know if everybody else is planning to read it, but I definitely am. I hate the cover, I'll say that, but I'm hoping the book's amazing. Here's where we start to get kind of dicey. Okay, then we have June. On June 1st, hopefully, is the 4th and final book in the Ember and the Ashes series by Saba Tahir. I love this series so much. It's one of my favorite YA series of all time. I love the 3rd book despite everyone hating it. I loved it, but if you don't know, it's kind of like a Roman type of YA fantasy series where, it's hard to explain, honestly. I have book reviews if you want to check them out, but I love this series, and I'm hoping this is not like I'm hoping that this is actually going to come out this year because I need it. And I know that she's going to break our hearts. Am I ready for that? Not at all. And I have June 2nd. I don't know if that's the right date. I have My Calamity Jane, which is written by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. And this is the retelling of Calamity Jane. It even features Annie Oakley in it. So if you don't know, they write books about Jane. So we have My Lady Jane, which was written about like the Queen of England. She was queen for like a hot second. And then My Plain Jane follows Jane, who was in My Jane Eyre. You even have Charlotte Bronte as a character. So this one's about My Calamity Jane, features Annie Oakley. I don't know, Jane. I think it's supposed to be like Western thing. I don't know. They're fun books. They're just funny and I love them. So I can't wait for that one. So in June, we have The Damned Byron Adier, which is the sequel to The Beautiful, which is a vampire book that I have reviewed and everything like that. So there's that one. On June 30th, we have another St. Anna Minna book called 10 Things I Hate About Pinky. And this is a follow-up to When Dipple Met Rishi, follows Pinky and Samir. And it's loosely based on 10 Things I Hate About You, which if you don't know, that is my favorite movie of all time. So, needless to say, I'm hoping this is going to be really good. On June 16th, sorry we have these dates out of order, we have You Say It First by Katie Codugno. This is about a girl named Meg who has set up her life perfectly. And basically she starts working at this phone banking as a voter registration call center. And then everything changes when the call connects her to a stranger from a small town, Ohio, who gets under her skin from the moment he picks up the phone. And we have Colby, who is stuck in a rut and basically last thing he has time for is some privileged rich girl preaching the sanctity of political process. So says the worst thing and he hangs up. That night on the phone winds up being the first in a series of candid, sometimes heated, always surprising conversation that leads up to long distance friendship and slowly into something more. I read all of Katie Cotugno's books. She writes YA contemporary books. If you can't tell already, I love that. So I'm excited for it. Then I don't have anything for August, honestly. And then in September, I have Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. And this is Empire is an illustrated dark fantasy epic, the bastard love child of The Interview of the Vampire, The Road, and The Name of the Wind. That sounds amazing to me. And if anything's vampires in it, I'm gonna read it. Let's just be honest. Then also, speaking of vampires, we have Vampires Never Get Old. It's an anthology featuring fresh takes on old souls with vampire stories that's also coming out in September. And those are all the books I am anticipating this year. So there's a lot. Of course, there's a lot YA contemporary. And of course, as the months go on, there will be more that are going to be released that I was like, oh, I should have put that on my list, but I didn't. So yeah, I know I've probably missed a lot. I'm sure you'll tell me in the comments. Speaking of, if you have some anticipated books that you're looking forward to this year, please leave them in the comments. Your girl needs all the help she can get with that. But I would love to hear what books you are really excited to read this year. I'm hoping it's going to be a really good year for reading for me. Fingers crossed. And I would love to hear what you're reading. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.